So I've written one of those,
Okay.
and it's around a piece that I found, which was around cantillation. So the
Oh,
trope,
okay. So
ta'amim, as
okay.
they're called in
Okay,
Hebrew.
so that's interesting. There's three different terms for this. In Yiddish, we call it trop or trope. In I always call it trop. In Hebrew, it's called ta'amim or ta'amimika, and in English, they'll also often refer to it as accent
Accent
marks,
marking or
right?
cantillation
Or
marks.
cancellation marks. And
Yeah,
accent isn't really exactly right
yeah,
because
no.
it's more than accent. But
Um,
cancellation's not the full story either. So
so
okay,
what I've found, and it's
yeah,
slightly different to
hmm,
many of the, so there are listings of the different
yeah,
notes, and each of those fragments are interesting in their own respect, but this one was
hmm,
particularly interesting because it was clearly a kind of trope trainer,
hmm.
and
Oh, really?
it was a little fragment been written by a teacher to teach a student. So
Wow.
he'd taken little excerpts of verses
Oh,
and made
wow.
sure that he'd covered off most of the note. I think pretty much all of the notes. I think Sof Pasuk was missing,
Mhm.
um, and and he'd written it out really nicely,
Oh, wow.
and written the names of the notes on the top
Oh,
next
that's
to
so
the
cool.
notes, and it was obviously a teaching thing.
Hmm.
So and the Geniza unit hadn't seen anything like that before. They hadn't
Hmm.
stumbled across this one, so I wrote about what was different about that
Very
particular
cool.
one. So
That's awesome.
and obviously as someone who lanes Torah in a synagogue, so actually does
Tell them what lane means.
laning is reading but with chanting.
Okay.
So you read the Torah with it has no vowels and it has no notes. So you actually have to remember them.
Yeah. It
And
has them in like the printed book, but in the
but
actual
in
Torah
the
scroll,
actual
it doesn't
Torah
have them.
scroll, it doesn't have. It's
Okay.
literally the consonants. So when you're laning,
Hmm.
and it was last week I did shishi, which is the sixth call up.
Can you recite a portion of that, like off the top of your, like I don't know, a few words or something? Or
Well, I can sing. So I can sing you the kind of normal things you get. For example, you get Mapach Pashta Zakef Katan Zakef Gadol Mercha Tipcha Mercha Sof Pasuk,
hmm,
which is an Ashkenazi trope.
yeah.
And that's a fairly standard kind of
Hmm.
lilt to the
Is
reading.
there a passage you know by heart that you can do with that? Or I'm putting you on the
No,
spot here.
no. I
Fair
don't tend
enough.
to
Okay.
remember stuff because you sort of like
Uh-huh.
either you do it with a little bit of notice,
Okay. Fair
or
enough.
you do it on the day and you may have to make up some of it because
Okay.
you're not sure of everything that's there.
I know at my bar
But
mitzvah there were people holding their hands over their ears because I can't carry a tune.
yeah,
But
so there were in last week's Zedra on the Shishi there were two pazers.
mhm.
So pazer, which is and that was on V'im and I think Haisha, so and if and the woman, and they used to have hand signals,
Mhm.
but they
I've
don't
seen
do
the
that
no, I've
anymore.
seen the hand
And I
signals.
would love to have hand signals because if somebody had the hand signals, then
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to
So
sort
let's
of
explain
practice
this.
it so
I
much.
saw this in the 80s in Chicago. I was at a synagogue and there was somebody standing on the side doing these. I'm like, what is this? And they explained to me
Yeah.
each symbol represents one of the different trope or accent marks.
Mm.
And the person who's reading, he sees the words in front of him and he's reminded of which accent is on that word or that set of words. And I'm like, this is incredible. And years later, when I was at university, they mentioned how in ancient times they used to have hand signals, and I'm like, wait, it wasn't ancient times.
No,
I've
no,
seen
see
it.
it. Yeah.
I've seen it in the
S-
20th
no,
century, and I don't
not
know if people still do it. I'm sure somebody
yeah.
still
No,
does it.
some people
So
still
it's
do it.
incredible that what was written down, as far as we know, by the Masoretic scribes, had existed in the form of these hand signals at some point, and maybe another point just in the form of a tune or a way of chanting, or as one scholar argues, prosody, meaning like it's that's what I said too. It's basically what she explained. This was a lecture she gave at SBL. That it's just like every language has and I might be misexplaining it, but basically how every language has sort of like a sing song to
A
it,
cadence.
a cadence, a sing song, um, intonation in a sense maybe, and she didn't use that word; she used prosody. So I want to get this right, but basically that this recorded those speech patterns, and so and what's attractive about her explanation is that so we have this whole system of what the accents do and how they interpret. They combine certain sets of words and break apart other words. But how would anybody know that hearing it? right? I mean,
Well, I mean, the whole idea and why it's called tamim, which
mhm,
means taste,
mhm,
flavor. It's supposed to give you a flavor
yeah.
of feel of the word more than just the sense of
Well,
the
but
word.
tamim could also mean reasons or meanings,
It can also mean
right? So it's
reason thing.
so it was the way they read it conveyed meaning, right?
Yes.
And look, there's this famous example where there's this one sentence with 7 words that can mean 7 different things. I don't remember what it is, but basically, it's something like, uh, you know, um, I don't know. It depends on the word that you emphasize that can change the whole meaning of
But
the
you can do that in
sentence.
English if you
You absolutely,
literally
well, you do it in every language.
every
That was her
language.
point. That
Yeah.
is part of the natural patterns of language, and no one's ever attempted to explain the ta'mim, the accent marks, the trump in that way. And so she's trying to figure out, okay, how does this apply to that now that we have these terms
Well, I suspect
in
some of them might
linguistics?
be, some of the things like pazer, for example,
Yeah,
might be sarcasm or
yeah.
emphasis. Certainly, it's
So
really emphatic. Shalshelet is
obviously
massively,
is emphasis, right?
yeah,
Vayitmameh.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that one I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually did Lane. I read from the Torah a few years ago. I did it once at my bar mitzvah, and it was horrible. It was horrible because I didn't understand. I came from a family where nobody sang. My father would sing Shabbat songs on Shabbat, and we would say, "Dad, please stop. It hurts to hear you," because he couldn't carry a tune. And then the rabbi tried to explain to me like Revia, like a rising tone, and
Hmm.
I'm like, "Do I stand up as I'm saying it?" Like I literally didn't understand what he was saying. And 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 then I decided when I was about 5 years ago, I said, now that I understand a little bit better about music theory, I don't know all that much. I said, I want to go and I want to actually, read from the Torah. And I started going to the synagogue every Shabbat. And one Shabbat, they said, we have no one to read, Shlishi or whatever it was. And I'm like, I will do it. And I was so nervous. And I got up there to read from, this was a conservative synagogue in Dallas. I got up there, and this guy pulls out a book and he says, if you don't know it, you can read it from the book. I'm like, no, I prepared it and I can do it, and I did it. I mean,
Kol
did it
hakavod.
hurt people's ears? Maybe, but I was able to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's off the checklist. It's and I want to say it was my bar mitzvah portion, but I don't know. This was like 5 years ago, so I don't remember. Probably wasn't. So no, I think it was something in Devarim, and my bar mitzvah portion was Vayishlach. So
Oh, well done.
I'm still traumatized by that. But anyway,